What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're doing good and having an amazing day. So in today's video, I'm going to be going over everything that you need to know about tax when investing in the UK stock market. So this will include everything from what tax you'll be expected to pay as a UK investor, how you might actually be able to reduce some of the tax you have to pay, as well as going over some government schemes that could actually eliminate the need for you having to pay any tax at all. Now, I've been getting a lot of questions coming from you guys with regards to tax on investments, so I just thought it'd be good to go over everything that you need to know in one video. And as we've just entered a new tax year, now seems as good a time as any. Now, before we get into it, if you are new around here, welcome to the channel. This really is the place to be for all the most relevant information when it comes to UK finance. So whether you're looking for the best bank accounts or credit cards out there at the moment, as well as content on investing, making and saving money, this really is the place to be. So if you're not already, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and click that bell so you never miss a video. And I know it is a bit cheeky asking before the video's even started, but I'd really appreciate it if you guys could smash that like button down below, as it does really help me out with the YouTube algorithm and just allows YouTube to share these videos to more people that might find them useful or interesting. And as always, just as a quick disclaimer, this is in no way financial advice. I'm simply just outlining information and giving my honest opinions and thoughts. Always make sure to do your own research and due diligence when it comes to your finances. But with all that out of the way, let's get into the video. Okay, so just before we jump straight into it, I just want to make it clear that we're going to be looking at the taxation on UK stock market investments only today. As obviously you can invest in other world markets as a UK citizen, it's just the tax can get very complicated when dealing with different world markets. And the tax rate actually varies depending on which country you're dealing with. So I think I'll just leave this for another video if you guys are interested in knowing all about this. And I can go over it in all of the detail that it needs. But with that being said, let's jump straight into what types of tax you'll be expected to pay as a UK investor. So as a UK investor, there are three main types of tax that you'll be expected to pay throughout the investment process. Okay, so the first of which is the stamp duty reserve tax. So this is something that you might be charged when buying certain types of investments. And the rate that you'll be charged is 0.5% of the total investment. Then we have dividend tax, which you might be exposed to when holding investments that pay out dividends. So dividends are taxed based on what tax band you fall under, which is worked out based on your income. Now, if you're not sure about which tax band you fall under, I'll put it on screen now. And it basically all depends on your income. So if you earn less than £12,500 each year, you actually won't have to pay any tax on your income. Then if you earn anything between £12,500 and £50,000 each year, you are a basic rate taxpayer, so you'll have to pay 20% in tax on your income. Then you become a higher rate taxpayer if you earn anything between £50,000 and £150,000. And then you'll be taxed 40% on your income. And then finally, if you earn more than £150,000, you become an additional rate taxpayer. And then you'll have to pay 45% in tax on your income. So if you're a basic rate taxpayer, you'll be taxed 7.5% on the dividends that you receive from your investments. Then moving up to a higher rate taxpayer, you'll be taxed 32.5%. And then finally, for additional rate taxpayers, you'll be taxed 38.1%. But the great thing about dividend paying investments is that everyone's entitled to a £2,000 dividend allowance, no matter which tax band you fall under. So what this means is the first £2,000 of dividends earned each year are actually completely tax-free. And it's only once you start earning dividends over this amount that you'll actually be taxed. And then finally, we have capital gains tax. So capital gains tax becomes relevant at the end of the life cycle of your investment. So you'll only actually be exposed to it when it comes to selling the shares for a profit. Now, the rate of capital gains tax that you pay again varies depending on which tax band you fall under. So for basic rate taxpayers, you'll be charged 10% on the profits that you make. And then for higher and additional rate taxpayers, you'll be charged 20%. But the great thing about capital gains tax is that it's only relevant when you actually sell the shares. So if you buy an investment and hold it for a number of years, you'll only actually be exposed to the capital gains tax when selling the shares for a profit. So sometimes it can be advantageous in terms of tax to buy and hold rather than buying and selling quite frequently. Now, when it comes to capital gains tax, everyone's actually entitled to a capital gains tax-free allowance each year. And at the moment, this tax-free allowance is £12,300. So what this means is you can buy and sell shares and make profits of up to £12,300 without even having to pay any capital gains tax. And it's only on profits of more than this where capital gains tax becomes relevant. Okay, so that basically covers the types of tax that you could be expected to pay when investing. But actually, depending on the types of investments you go for and how they're structured, you may not even have to pay all these types of tax. So I'll go over all the different investment types and how they're taxed now. So first off, we have equities, or in other words, individual companies. So with these, you'll be exposed to stamp duty when buying the shares. You'll also be exposed to tax on dividends and also capital gains tax. Then we have ETFs, or exchange traded funds. So this could be anything like an index fund. And with ETFs, you don't actually have to pay any stamp duty when buying the shares, but you will be exposed to tax on dividends as well as capital gains tax. Then we have open-ended investment companies or unit trusts. So these are basically actively managed funds. And with these, again, you're not going to have to pay any stamp duty when buying the shares, but you will be exposed to dividend tax and capital gains tax. Then we have investment trusts, which are actively managed funds, but structured slightly differently to unit trusts. So with these, you will actually have to pay stamp duty when buying the shares, as well as tax on any dividends and capital gains. Then we have CFDs, which are contract for difference. So with these, you can gain exposure to the market growth and volatility, but without actually buying any underlying assets. And with these, you don't have to pay any stamp duty, but you will be exposed to tax on dividends and capital gains tax. And then we have spread betting, which is sort of similar to CFDs, where you're not buying any underlying assets, but it's considered a form of gambling where you're speculating on the market volatility. And so because it is considered gambling, you don't actually have to pay any tax. So there's no stamp duty or capital gains tax, and dividend tax sort of really isn't relevant. Okay, so hopefully now that makes it clear as to what sort of tax you might be expected to pay on different investments. And actually, I think for beginner investors, you can actually make quite a lot of money completely tax-free by taking advantage of your capital gains tax allowance and dividend allowance. But if you are likely to be making gains going over these allowances, it can be really worth looking into specialised account types and government schemes that will allow you to shelter all of that money from being taxed at all, and moving away from just using standard investment accounts. So pretty much the best way to shelter your investments from being taxed, without it then being restricted to not being able to withdraw the money when you want to, is to basically set up an investment ISA. So to put it simply, with an investment ISA, what it does is basically shelters you from having to pay any dividend tax or capital gains tax on all of the investments made within this type of account. So this is perfect if you're making huge gains each year, as well as earning a lot of income from dividends. However, the one big downside is that you can only deposit £20,000 each year into an ISA, and this is spread across any other ISAs that you might have. So for example, if you have a cash and an investment ISA, you can only deposit £20,000 across the two of them. So you can do 10 in each or 20 in one and none in the other, but you can't deposit more than that £20,000 each year. Now in reality, if you set up an investment ISA and deposit the maximum of £20,000 into it, it's very unlikely within the first few years that the actual benefits of having the ISA will come into effect. For example, in the first year, to actually utilise the benefits of an ISA, you'd need to make gains of at least 60% or more and actually sell those assets. Or alternatively, you'd need to make at least 10% from dividends alone. Now in all honesty, these are both pretty unlikely to happen, but that doesn't mean that investment ISAs are a waste of time, because actually the real benefits shine through for longer term investors that continually deposit money into their investment ISAs each year. So if, for example, over a 5-year period, you've been continually depositing £20,000 each year into your investment ISA, and your total had built up to £100,000, if you invested that money and made gains of 20% and then sold those assets, that would go over your capital gains tax allowance, and then you'd have to pay capital gains tax on that £7,700 over the allowance. But from simply having that money invested within an ISA, it would be completely tax-free. Likewise with dividends, so say you made 4% on that 100 grand from a dividend paying out investment that paid out 4% in the year, that £4,000 would be completely tax-free. Whereas if it wasn't in an ISA, that first £2,000 would be sheltered from your dividend allowance, but then the £2,000 on top of that would then be taxed. So hopefully this shows that ISAs can be really beneficial, especially for long-term investors. But the one thing to note is that investment ISAs don't shelter you from having to pay stamp duty. So any investments that you buy within your investment ISA that would require you to pay stamp duty, you'll still have to pay that 0.5% charge. Now it's also worth mentioning that there are other specialised investment account types out there. For example, lifetime ISAs and SIPs, and these offer great tax benefits as well. But however, the standard investment ISA is the only one that you can actually withdraw the money when you want to. Whereas SIPs and lifetime ISAs are a lot more restrictive and potentially less appropriate for people who are investing their savings. But that being said, if you are interested in knowing about all the different advantages of different investment account types, like SIPs and lifetime ISAs, I'll leave a link down below in the description to my video where I go over all of those different account types, what the benefits are, and how they differ from one another. So that basically covers everything when it comes to tax on UK investments, but let's just now look at a couple of examples. So if in a standard investment account or non-ISA, I bought £1,000 worth of shares in an ETF and then sold it for a 10% profit, receiving no dividends, I wouldn't have to pay any stamp duty when buying the shares initially, no tax on dividends, and then no capital gains tax, as the profits would only be £100 contributing to the capital gains tax allowance. So for that particular scenario, there's no real benefit of having that money in an investment ISA. Another example might be if in that same standard investment account, you had £100,000 to invest, which you put into an investment trust that you then held for 5 years, making no return in dividends, but then made 50% in growth over that 5-year period. You'd have to pay that 0.5% in stamp duty when buying those initial shares, so that's £500. But then in terms of capital gains tax, you wouldn't have to pay anything over that 5-year period until you actually come to sell those shares. So if they're sold for 50% in growth or £50,000 profit, you'd have to pay capital gains tax on that £37,700, as this is the amount going over the capital gains tax allowance. And this would be at a rate of 10 or 20% depending on which tax band you fall under. But if you did actually have all this money invested within an investment ISA, you'd only have to pay the stamp duty when buying the initial shares and no capital gains tax. But there we have it. That basically covers everything for today, guys. I really hope you guys did find this useful, as I know the tax side of investing can be pretty daunting. But if you did make it this far, thank you so much for watching. And if you did enjoy the video or feel like you learned something new in any way, I'd really appreciate it if you guys could smash that like button down below, as it does really help me out with the YouTube algorithm and just allows YouTube to share these videos to more people that might find them useful or interesting. And if you are new around here, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below and click that bell so you never miss a video, as this really is the place to be for all the most relevant information on UK finance. So if you're interested in knowing about the best bank accounts and credit cards out there at the moment, as well as content on investing, making and saving money. And as always, if you do have any questions or feedback for me, make sure to just drop your thoughts down below in the comments, and I'll make sure to respond to all of you. But with all that being said, take it easy guys and keep saving.